Blessings, greetings, mitakie oyasi. We are here 40 miles west of Edmonton, Paul's First Nations. It's a great honor. It's the highest honors to be with our relatives, spiritual people of the world. This is World Peace and Prayer Day 2025, and I say to each and every one of you that Mother Earth, we call Uchimaka, is speaking to us through the white animals. And we're so honored that the message went out all over the world and people heard the message. We are in a very crucial time in history when Mother Earth, Uchimaka, is sick and has a fever. That Mother Earth is a source of life, not a resource. This year, we'll come together because the message of the white buffalo that been born in Janesville, Wisconsin, 2004, and this past year, another one was born in Yellowstone. And we call that, through our ceremonies, we name that white buffalo Wakangli. Mitakepi, apetukile, echamakak na chukoya pinka, and asha wamakashka oyateki, and waka and hoyapi. Shake, waleho najipinka, and tuwayo kithapi, and takueche otechika akiphapi. We have come into a time when these white buffalo animals have showed their sacred color. And through our ceremonies, our message is loud and clear that no matter where you are, that the Spirit is calling you to step forward, to stand up with us. We are faced with global disasters. We are at the crossroads. And we're faced with volcanoes. We're faced with earthquakes, a lot of sicknesses and viruses. There's a lot of messages, prophecies come together today. We honor all of them. We have traveled different countries for 30 years because from our ceremonies and our dreams, no matter where you go, the spiritual people in their territories today, they're standing with us again, lighting their sacred fire, like here we did here in Paul's First Nations. We travel on horseback, running, or walking to deliver the message, to unite our people in prayer, because the old ones, they remind us that when we come together. Now you listen to the elders of ceremonies, and that is happening right now. In the past, a lot of abuse has come to our sacred lands, and we are standing up right now with the world leaders to bring attention to our sacred way of life. But we know that all the people in the world leaders, different people of the world are coming together to pray for peace. Because in our spiritual ways, and even the people that do ceremonies and prayers in the church, and no matter where you go, the people always pray for peace. This is who we are, maintaining our ways and respecting each other's way of prayer. But right now, it's a very important time right now. We know what has happened in the past. We know what is happening right now. And we know what's going to happen in the future. I say that through our ways that we need to respect, honor the sacred. We warn that someday you would not be able to control what you have created. And that day is here, where we need to stand together, to stand and unite as nations all over the world. Just recently, we went to South Korea and North Korea. They came together at a place, a big place where they have the World Peace Gathering. Over 200 religious leaders have come together. Many people came together believing in peace. We as spiritual people, we stood together with them because we're living in a time of prophecies, and we share this with the people because when the people lead, they say that spiritual people listen. And the animals are calling us together right now. So it's our responsibilities, our duties today. We want to pray with each and every one of you. So those people that are lost, that we ask you to come to the sacred fires because the Spirit is calling us. Thank you very much. I hope.
Makakanocha utefika hechawa de chanupawa wakhacha he ukahipi. e shakoi hina wacheke ucheta hochuka hina ucheta ahipi. Hepta sami he wati hina uchake na
Allied air forces began an attack on military targets
If the war
in Iraq.
goes to start, disasters in the region will take
Hurricane
place.
is located about 40 miles due east of
This
Miami.
is total
Still dark
devastation.
outside when the earthquake struck. Destruction everywhere.
All of this is connected.
Heche pte hinchla wa sancha makakan heche ake kinajikte.
Among Native Americans, a sacred story has been passed down for generations about a holy woman who taught them to pray and promised them prophecy at the birth of a white buffalo.
Rare living symbol of unity and understanding.
Only 1 in 10 million buffalo are white.
An animal rich in the lore of Native Americans and sacred to many tribes.
It's a sign of change to the world.
My name is Chief Arvo Looking Horse, 19th generation keeper of the sacred pipe, Lakota, Dakota, Nakota, Sioux Nation.
Orville, as the 19th generation keeper of the sacred pipe, he is to us what the Pope is to the Catholic people. He is to us what the Dalai Lama is to the Tibetan people, what Muhammad is to the Muslim people. What his entire life is committed to is caring for the pipe, the intent of the pipe, and as the spiritual keeper of those sacred rites and ceremonies that were brought to us by the white buffalo calf woman.
Many nations have sacred objects. For us, the sacred pipe is the center of our nation, was a tool for us to pray with, to the Great Spirit. When I was 12 years old, my grandmother on her deathbed, she said, my grandchild is going to be the keeper of the sacred pipe. But if the people don't straighten up, that you will be the last bundle keeper. As a young boy, I thought I knew a lot. I was going to high school and living with my father and my mother. They were both bronc riders. And my mother, she breaks horses. My father, he was a bareback rider, going to rodeos. And I want to be one of those guys. I want to sing at a powwow and rodeo like everybody else. So I did eventually join the rodeos in our community and our reservations. But I was scared of horses. So. I rode Great Plains, SDRA, South Dakota rodeos. It took me a while, but eventually I got into professional rodeo. And that was my goal, to ride with the top cowboys of the world. I was rodeoing like 36 to 38 rodeos a year. I just had a feeling that something was going to happen. I got on a horse, and when they opened that gate, that horse went straight up in the air and it took a flip backwards and came up top of me, and then both my knees, I can just still feel that. And that's all I remember. They took me to the hospital. The doctor said that, he's paralyzed neck on down. It was a matter of time. And I was helpless. I cried in my heart. I saw my relatives the next morning at daybreak. I knew they were standing there waiting for me. That phone rang and they held that phone to my ear. I knew that it was the spirit grandmother, the white buffalo calf woman. And she told me, well, you did this to yourself. You're supposed to be helping the people. The grandmother really chewed me out and said, we're going to give your life back. There's a hard time coming. And now you're going to stand with the people. You're going to walk. Within 4 days, I got my feelings back. It was so beautiful just to walk. And I told myself I'm going to give thanks all the time from here on. They gave my life back to help the people. I don't care if it's a small group of people or thousands of people. I'm going to pray for world peace and global healing. I grew up in a very short time here, and now I am a world leader carrying the message of the white buffalo. The prophecy of mending the sacred hoop and stand together. That sacred hoop of the nation was broken at Wounded Knee. We have a long history of war over protecting our territory. Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse. Everything started after Little Bighorn. We signed a treaty with the U.S. government over 100 years ago. It was broken at Wounded Knee, 1890. Bigfoot, he's my great-great-grandfather. We're survivors of Holocaust, massacres, in the name of progress. Put our people on concentration camps. It's called a reservation, but back then it was a concentration camp. The military came and took our children, 5, 6 years old. If you don't let go of your children, you shot your children right in your arms. So much abuse. We rode horseback from the 80s till 1990. We did a ceremony, and we prayed that there would be no more wounded knees throughout the world. But the way things are going, and the things that we are doing right now, well, it's not that way. Mother Earth, she has a fever. Man has gone too far. Disrespect everything. Sacred sites been destroyed. Eagles are flying into trash pits. When I go outside our community into the world, this is a strange world that can't succeed. But right now at home, the Native American people, they're gathering to stand up to stop the pipeline. The elders talk about the black snake, where the black snake will be going on top of the earth, and that's when we'll be faced with global disaster. The Native American people believe that the black snake is the pipeline. We have come to a time and a place of great urgency. Even scientists are saying that we are at the point of no return. People are so spiritually disconnected. We need to reconnect with spirit. Mother Earth is the spirit. Mother Earth is the source of life, not a resource. We are at the crossroads, but there is hope. I have been campaigning to United Nations to declare June 21st as World Peace and Prayer Day, or Honor Sacred Sites Day. Sacred sites all over the world must be protected. On June 21st, we're asking people all over the world to pray with us. We can create an energy shift, and that's what needs to happen to heal Mother Earth. 1994, the first white buffalo was born. It was like a needle in a haystack. A message to the world. We need to heal together, survive together, come together, There's no one person higher than the other. There's no one nation higher than the other. We are at the crossroads, either be faced with chaos, disasters, tears from our relatives' eyes, or we can unite spiritually. All nations, all faiths, one prayer.
My name's Wakan Wahokpiwi. I will be your MC for the day. I would like to present our first presenter. His name is Francois Paulette. He comes from the, Smiths Landing Treaty 8 First Nation and the founding member of the Dene Cultural Institute. He's here to present about climate change and what's left. So I'd like to introduce Paulette Francois.
Salotina. That's my language, Denisontina. What I said, all my relations. I come from the far north. For many of you, you probably think it's very cold, but it's not. I want to share with you what is going on in the world, what is going on here, what is going on in our homeland in the north. Before the doctrine of discovery, we have been warned of the events that are to be here. We have prophecies that has brought us here, and tomorrow, what is going to take place? When I was 21 years old, I became the leader, the chief of my tribe. I want to say that one of my first responsibilities is to protect the tribe, the womankind, and more so, Mother Earth. Not to abuse Mother Earth. I, 21 years old, we filed this huge court case in the north. It's called the Caveat Paulette case. We won that major court battle. This forced the Canadian government to recognize that there is such a thing, in their words, as Aboriginal rights and titles. There was 26 of us chiefs I am the last remaining chief. The next battle was they wanted to build a Mackenzie gas pipeline from way in the north all the way down here. The 34 tribal groups in the north, we took offense to that. In a 2-year time, we challenged that they could not do that, not in our homeland, not in the foreseeable future. In 1977, the oil companies walked away from that. I was in that battle. Not soon after, the next battle, they wanted to dam the beautiful river that I live by. This river that has sustained us for thousands and thousands of years. So I took that challenge. 3 times, non-Dene people, white people, wanted to dam the river so they can have energy 2,000 megawatts. All 3 of them, we won the challenge. They walked away from it. These protecting the earth was the most important thing that I could have done, along with those other chiefs. Because water is life. Water is the center of all life. And that was important for us to protect that river. In that river, there is 21 species of fish. I have relatives here that come from the east arm of Great Slave Lake. That lake and the east arm, a beautiful water. You still can drink that water with a cup and drink it. But that's not going to last forever. So, my friends, water has now been contaminated by the tar sands. I'm not going to talk about the tar sands. The lady before yesterday talked about it. And the water on the river is the lowest we have ever seen. I just wanted to show you a clip of what's happening in our homeland, on the river.
My name is Lord Cheesy. This is my territory. I never seen the water level this low before, where the fish couldn't even go upstream. When I was young, we couldn't cross this little stream right here we got now, which is not wide. It's about 20 feet wide now. But in the old days, it was maybe 100 feet wide. Some places.
I'm Jane Dragon. I moved to Fort Smith when I was 9, so I've been here for 70 years. And I had never seen a river like that. This is the first time. The world is changing lots with us. I don't know how we'll be when you're my age. All the delta had dried up. The birds not going there anymore because it's all dried up.
Well, there's less of everything. There's less buffaloes, less caribou, less moose.
It's never been this low. Now then, the ice is stuck to the mud, and it's never been like that. Pretty soon we'll walk across.
I am standing on the shore of the Dog River, but in a normal year, this would be underwater. The water would be up over here. But this is pitiful.
There's a lot of concern amongst Native people because we're downstream from all these industries, especially the dams on the Peace River and the tailing ponds from Fort Mac. They use up all the water before it gets here, and they pollute it also.
Without water, we won't live that long. You know, it's very important. And polluting it, it's even worse.
Everything is in danger. Everything is, all these fish, the four-legged animals, birds, they're all impacted, not just humans. But humans is the biggest cause of this climate change, is global warming. And to be honest, they don't really care. They don't care. They could build all the pipelines they want, open up all the bitumen mines, the tar sand, so what? All they want to do is make money. But while they're doing that, this beautiful land is being destroyed. So there is no balance in what's happening between the environment, Mother Earth, and the people that want to continue to destroy the land by tar sands, by industrial development. There's no balance. It's out of balance. We are in an emergency situation. Canada needs to adopt emergency measures and declaring that there's impact through climate change on the environment.
If they built another dam, you know, they're talking about it. And I think that one will finish us off.
So what we're going to do if we ran out of water? Well, we can't make water. It's got to rain before we have any water. And it's a shame that money is more important than water. I mean, you couldn't live on money. You couldn't buy water if there's no water. They don't do anything. They don't try and do anything. They don't even go public about how low the water is. They can't go against the big industry like the BC dams. But we can. We will fight the dams all the way. And the tar sands also. We haven't given up, just laying low.
In the north, the country is vast. This river flows from the ice fields and the mountains. It goes all the way to the Arctic Ocean. I was with a group of elders that worked and advised Western doctors about traditional practices of medicine and protocols. And one of the things that kept coming up was cancer. Why is there so much cancer along the river system? So we asked the doctor to give us an analysis of what types of cancer was there. 2, 3 weeks later, they came back, and the elders pretty much figured it out. Here, nationally in Canada, stomach cancer is the 3rd highest. For some unknown reason, in the north, it's the highest. And we asked the doctor, where is this coming from? They only can point to the environment. Because the water has been impacted all the way to the Mackenzie. Right today, you cannot navigate the Mackenzie River. The ships that normally would go up the river to supply the communities, you cannot do that. You either have to fly it in, and it's hard on the communities. And because of the tar sands, forest fires, wildfires, there are a lot of people that have respiratory problems. And people are dying of respiratory problems. Unlike down here, there's only 33 villages, First Nations up in the north, Yellowknife being the biggest. So we are confronted with challenges. But as people in the north, we had to stay together. The chiefs, the leaders, if one of the chiefs defected from their responsibility of protecting Earth, the white man knows that, and he sees that, and he takes advantage of that. So far, in the north, we have a reasonable, clean environment. We do not get into a fossil fuel industry. We do not do that. Because we know that fossil fuel is the #1 damage globally to Mother Earth. So the other big event that's taking place is wildfires. Wildfires all come from the warming, the heat. In the spring, there is a continuous wind from the east. The wind from the east is unusual in the spring. It dries up the country faster, evaporates the snow faster than the sun can melt the snow. So it's creating problems for the people. Next slide. This slide here is, we do ceremonies, what we call feeding the fire ceremony. The forestry departments, 3 of them, one from Alberta, one for the Northwest Territories, and the park, Wood Buffalo Park, asked the chief who is my son, says, is there a ceremony we can do so we can protect and defend how we're going to live with fire? Yes, and we have that. So feeding of the fire ceremony took place. Feeding of the fire ceremony is we're asking the ancestors, the old people, the holy people, to intervene in these huge fires that were around us. So we make offering, tobacco offering. And the woman's part is the food. We have a feast and we have food that is also fed to the fire. We do this most of the time, if we can do all of the time. So this feeding of the fire ceremony is everyone can be part of it, including Hoskana. Hoskana means the visitors that come to our country. And all of these people, by the end of the ceremony, there were 300 firefighters. And they took part in this ceremony. They've never engaged in a ceremony. And I witnessed some of the people crying that for the first time, that they realize that a fire is a living spirit, and we need to know how to live with it. So tears came down. It is for us in the North, protecting the earth, the water, is the biggest part of our life. I have 5 boys, 2 daughters. I got 12 grandchildren. 6 boys, 6 beautiful grandgirls. And they look at me and they say to me, they have 2 words to identify me, Mushum and Setsia. And I'm always constantly telling them stories, reminding them who they are, their responsibility, because we live out in the bush. I don't live in town. I live by the big river. And the world that we know it as is shrinking. I come from the Buffalo Nation country. I've been with the buffalo since I've ever known it. They are on the decline. The caribous to the north, to where my relatives live, the caribou are on the decline. All of these are all sources of life for us. And we have ceremonies to involve the Buffalo Nation, to really understand nature, Mother Earth, all the living things, including those mosquitoes that harass us right now. They are part of the living world. And my grandchildren, I try to instill hope. That there is a way if we stay together, if we follow the prophecies. I will share a prophecy with you. Where I come from, the Buffalo Nation are moving north. They're way up in the Yellowknife area. That's quite a ways. The other muskox, he's a smaller version of the buffalo. He's about this big. He is moving south. The people that prophesied, he said, in the future, when the buffalo and the muskox come together, there is going to be some upheaval in our lives and in the world. The muskox are close to where I live. Practically, they're close to the buffalo. They're going to be coming together soon. And I fear for what is going to happen. They also say that people from the south, from the deep south, they are going to start to move north. And that's happening. Because he said a long time ago, Dretotina, stone people, they're going to come in our country. That's before the treaties, Treaty 8 and 11, that they're going to come for two things. Te samba, that's gold. The other one, Clistora, oil. They're going to make their money and they're going to leave. But when the tough times come, they are going to return, this time crying. They are looking for two things, water and food. And again, it's our responsibility. We must have compassion for these people that have been doing wrong to themselves, to Mother Earth. The doctrine of discovery, over 500 years ago, their whole thinking, their whole philosophy, their whole belief system is based on controlling and having dominion over all living things. And that means everything, including us people. So, right now, we are preparing. This summer, I'm going to be building a food shelter, food security, because we are asked to do that by prophets, by the holy people, to prepare. They tell us we must put food aside for up to 2 years. Up to 2 years. So, that is what I'm doing. And other people are starting to recognize that these prophecies are coming true. It is we are in a difficult time. You have a man in the South and in the States, the elevator doesn't go all the way to the top on this man. Simple as that. His life is different. And he is doing what he has to do. So I want just to say that bringing hope to the grandchildren, that we must learn to go back to the bush. My tribe that I belong to, we have camps, one in the spring, one in the fall, one in the winter, where we bring the young people together to teach them about the bush, of how to fillet fish, of how to skin out a moose, of how to make dry meat. We have these camps because all of our lives is to live with Mother Earth. We cannot abuse her. I've learned that way since I was a young chief. Before that, I'm a trained tracker. I'm a hunter. My father taught me those skills to be a tracker. But now I'm getting old. I cannot even track my wife where she goes to. Yes. She outsmarts me all the time. Yeah, it's so in the north, Treaty 8, Treaty 11, if the oil companies, resource people want to come in and destroy the earth, they have a hell of a time to do that. Because the Paulette case stands on a road of them. It's a legal case. And there is, for the first time in 73, the government of the day, 1973, recognized there is such a thing as rights that Indian people have, First Nations. So do not be afraid. Here, you're in Treaty 6, and the North, Treaty 8, Saskatchewan, Treaty 8, BC, Treaty 8, and the North, Treaty 8, and Treaty 11. In the North and the Treaty 8 area, we have over 450,000 square miles of land. So no resource people can just go in there and do what they want to do. Those days are over. So when I travel nationally in the world, not too long ago I was amongst Islam country, Qatar. I was in Doha because people are looking for a spiritual way of life. In Doha, Islam people, there's 1,200 of them at this conference. And I'm talking to them the way I'm talking to you. Because their belief system is similar, but they are distracted by fossil fuel. The wars are raging. It's all got to do with fossil fuel. When I traveled the Scandinavian countries, same thing. They're looking for a reason of how to be a spiritual person. I traveled to South Africa or Africa, the same story. They're looking for a way of life that you may have put aside. I'll tell you this crazy story. I took my wife to South Africa. By the way, my wife is a Mohawk. She is a midwife, Western traditional. We were at this place, and there was a tribal ceremony that took place for us. There you have a different thinking. They see me as a high chief, they say. High chief. How high? I don't know. Anyway, they were having a feast in our honor. And it was to start, the moderator came up to me. He says, Chief, medicine man, how many wives did you bring with you? I looked at my wife. And before I could say anything, he says, you see that man over there? Yeah. Him, he's got strong medicine. Very strong medicine. If you have strong medicine, you can have many wives. Him, he has 25 wives. I look at my wife, I said, I was born in the wrong country. Anyway, he says, that man has 52 children. Anyway, he comes back to me, okay, medicine man chief. He says, how many wives did you bring? Just one, that's her. And I said, I am not the one with the medicine, that's her. That throw him right off. So there's all different cultural systems in the world, and we have to adjust to it. We're not better than them, and we have to have patience. Having patience, tolerance, compassion is part of who we are as Denisotina people, as First Nations people. I try not to use the term indigenous, because it doesn't come from our language, it comes from somewhere else. Or Aboriginal, it comes from somewhere else. I say Denisotina. I am a Denisotina. I am part of this huge tribe. We have brothers in the South. They are Navajos and Apaches. We speak the similar language. White people say Athabascan, but we're Denisotina. We've been around since time immemorial. Our people say, no ditana et thank a hutilile janitil tido. What they are saying is that our people traveled the stars before we came here. That's how far our history goes back. These star travelers that travel here, white people call them UFOs, but they're scared of the UFOs. But for us, they've been around. We call them star travelers. In our language, star travelers. So my friends, I encourage you, get ready, prepare, put food aside, and however way you're going to do it for up to 2 years. I'm not the only one that says that. The people in the South, the Mohawk people, say that. So it's come a time, and I want to thank Orville and his wife for sharing their prophecies of their teachings and their learnings, because it's part of all of us. It is part of Mother Earth. And I want to thank you to listening to me. It's a short talk, but as a chief, I can speak for a long time, but I don't do that anymore. My son does that. He's the chief. So, Masi Cho, thank you so much, my dear friends. My talk is over.
Thank you. Once again, that was Francois Paulette. Our next presenter comes from the Mi'kmaq. She's a Mi'kmaq ceremonial leader from the LC Buktuk First Nation in New Brunswick.
Aho, Nogamadud, my friends, my relatives. I have to stand a little bit over here so I can see some of the slides. I'm from Elsipogtog First Nation in New Brunswick. I am part of the people of the dawn, the Wubben. Wubben means dawn. And I just want to kind of take you back a little bit before contact, that through prophecy, first of all, I called my presentation, "We are still here," irregardless of what was imposed upon us. And so you can start with the first slide. I don't know who okay. According to prophecy, our ancestors knew that many people were going to arrive on our shores. They knew. The light-skinned people were going to arrive first, our neighbors from across the Great Water. Before that time happened, our ancestors knew that there was going to be an onslaught on our ways, and our sacred objects, our sacred teachings had to be brought inland to be protected until it was time, until it was safe. So we experienced colonization and assimilation before our brother and sister tribes out west. When I was growing up, there was no evidence of the ceremonial part of our culture where I come from. And so there were no ceremonies. There was actually a bounty on our heads if we were caught practicing our ways. Before that, when they arrived, they gave our ancestors blankets infested with smallpox, the disease. Thousands of our people died from smallpox and the many diseases that were brought because we did not have any immunity. And so since that time, the first thing that we did, the first slide, okay, was we We welcomed them to our shores. We offered them medicinal tea. We offered them food. They were dying of scurvy and rickets. Many didn't even make that long voyage. But we knew, we welcomed them. We shared our knowledge of how to live in this new land and how to survive the harsh winters. Then we agreed to share the land. We shared our food. We shared everything. And we didn't know that they were going to take over, try to take over the land. So we had prophecies. Our prophecy of peace and friendship treaties, where 1752, where we agreed, nation to nation, to live in peace and friendship. We are still holding that part of the bargain, that part of the treaty. And one of the reasons why our treaties were so respected and are still respected to this day by our people is because with each treaty signed, there was ceremony involved. There was tobacco, like I'm holding in my hand. And when you accept that tobacco, not only are you making a commitment to that person that's offering you the tobacco, to do the best of your ability to honor what they're asking of you, you're also making a commitment to the Creator, and that is always. And then we have a treaty, the Watertown Treaty, that was signed in 1776 with the United States, with Massachusetts. So our people, the Mi'kmaq people, we have a treaty with the United States. They recognized us as a nation. We are citizens of both countries. And like I said, so they tried to take more and more and more. And eventually, as they took more and more, they began to, next slide please. I'll just go like this and maybe you can do the next slide. They took our children, as was mentioned this morning. Our most sacred gift from the Creator are our children. Nothing else can compare. And so the Indian agents came, backed up by the RCMP, as they did with my father and my two uncles. My dad was 6 years old. They placed him in these places where there was abuse was rampant. On the side, there's a list, and on that list are experiments, the children that were used as experiment, names of children and ages, and they're known by a number. They didn't even use their first name, they used numbers. My dad, Sam Augustine, is on that list. They did nutritional experiments and medical experiments. And my uncle, John Peter, Uncle John, he's on that list. There's the school, that horrible school, Shubenacadie Indian Residential School, where they took our children. And to this day, all throughout the land, United States, Canada, North America, what we refer to as Turtle Island, we are still suffering those intergenerational traumas and abuses because we were never in there. They were never taught to be good parents. And they cut their hair. But I tell people, when I think about residential school, you can cut our hair, you can punish us for speaking our language, but you can never kill our spirit because we're still here. And so the next slide. These are the unmarked graves. The evidence was found of unmarked graves. It started with 225, and there's hundreds, and even over here, United States as well. Mass graves of innocent children that were killed, tortured. And so these are sadnesses that our spirit we still carry, and we need to let go of that hurt. They tried to get rid of us in every which way. Again, we are still here. Next slide, please. This was in 1981. I was pregnant with my child, Moen, July of 1991. I was 8.5 months pregnant, and I went because in Listugush, it's a Mi'kmaq community. They were being attacked on the water. They chased the fishermen right into the water, the QPP and all the forces. They beat the men up in front of the women, and the women could not move. They came in with riot gear, and they froze the whole community. And so at that bridge, there's a Mi'kmaq young man from our community. He's paralyzed to this day because someone ran over him on purpose. But we're still here. The next slide. This was in Burn Church. This is where the DFO tried to run over our fishermen in the little boats. They said we were overfishing. And even now, the total fishing population in Canada, the natives make up less than 1% of the total fishing population. We don't overfish. We've always been taught you only take what you need. And so they tried to kill them. They tried to run them over. We were on the land. We lit a sacred fire. And people were terrorized in the community. Elders, some of them had heart attacks. There was one point where they were underwater, the DFO, RCMP, the non-native fishermen, and they blocked off all the 3 entrances into the community by road. They blocked off the water. And I remember telling them, let's go to the water. My friend and I, Mi'kmaq, we went throughout the community. We had a bullhorn, and we told them in Mi'kmaq and in English, let's go pray about the water, because the spirit of the water will protect us. And that's what we did. Men, women, and children, people on wheelchairs. And we prayed with tobacco. And then shortly after, one road was open. And slowly, that sacred fire protected us. The fire that was gifted to us, all of us, by the Creator. And then the next slide. This was in Saulnierville, Nova Scotia. They were burning the native fishermen boats. I remember arriving there early in the morning, just before dawn. And I looked at the boats on the water. They looked like yachts with lights, fancy fishing boats. And our fishing boats looked like little tugboats compared to theirs. And they wouldn't let our fishermen go out past that stone wharf. But we stood there. You won't see me in there, but amongst that flag, I'm there praying. And I remind people, let's pray. The spirits of our ancestors will always watch over us. But we must never take it for granted. And while I'm on that note, I want to share with you a teaching from the late Albert Lightning Buffalo Child, who lived here in Hobim, Alberta. And he said, no matter what happens, he said, continue with the ceremonies. And another teaching he told us many times, that we as the first people, as the native people on this land, are still spiritually protected by the Creator. I will say it again. We as the native people of this land, Turtle Island, are still spiritually protected by the Creator. Don't ever forget that. Next slide. So they burnt the place where we stored the fish. I missed that, but it's okay. Right there on the top. There were 2 men inside. One man was so terrified he couldn't sleep for months after that because he was sleeping in there and they put the place on fire. He got out of there with his life. So these are some of the things that were imposed on us. Okay, now we'll go to the next slide. This is in our community of Elsabuktuk, just a few miles, 10 minutes out of our community, a little place called Rexton. Our people stood up against fracking. They knew that there was going to be, that if the fracking continued, that it would ruin that water. Once it ruins that water table, it's gone forever. And we are told, when important decisions are to be made, we're to think 7 generations ahead. Not only how it's going to affect our children and our grandchildren, but our great-grandchildren, our great-great-grandchildren. So they knew they had to stand up for the water. And the local community realized, non-native community, they're not just standing up for their community, they're standing up for all of our water. And just back to that one slide, please. Just back. For the fracking there. There's the iconic picture. There's a young Mi'kmaq woman right here. And she's holding up her eagle feather. Look at all the forces in front of her to let them know this is all we have. We're not standing here with guns. We're not standing here with violence. We're here in prayer. And she held up her eagle feather, and that picture was captured. I know this young lady. I'm so proud of her. It's okay, it's the next one. I'm not used to speaking with pictures, but, and this is, now I want to talk about our ancestors. I've been working on repatriation since 1977. When the ancestors woke me up in the middle of the night, I was pregnant with my second child, and they asked for my help. And since that time, I have been heeding that call. Their remains were on a shelf in a museum, and they would have remained there forever. And so that ancestor came to me, and he came 4 days in a row, and that's whose name I carry. My name is Thunderbird Turtle Woman. That turtle comes from an ancestor that lived almost 3,000 years ago. That's before Christ. That's who guides me. That's who protects me as I do this work. They had to teach me how to do a reburial ceremony. I do many different ceremonies. But our people didn't know how to do a reburial ceremony because no one ever dug up the dead. That's our ancestors. That's our bloodline. We carry, in our bloodline, we carry the DNA of the ones who went before us. They're the ones that guide us spiritually, through our dreams, through our ceremonies. Every ceremony that we do, we call upon the spirits of our ancestors. So in this picture, it's okay, 2 minutes, okay. In this picture, I fought Harvard for 30 years, 3 decades, to get back our ancient ancestors that they tried every which way to hold back from us. But I never gave up because I know I had to be a voice for those ancestors. And after 30 years, 3 decades, Harvard opened its doors 9 o'clock in the morning. I was there at 8:30 in the morning to pick up those ancestors, around 6,500-year-old ancestors. And so we must never give up when we believe in something. And so the next slide. The next slide, please. These are some of the things that were buried with our dead. I don't usually show it, but they were so intricate. Imagine, over 6,000 years ago, such intricate knowledge that they had. Okay, next slide. I just want to touch on that. So I'm going to read this. The plundering, exploitation, and theft of our ancestors, sacred ceremonial items, and sacred places violate our basic human right as human beings. This practice was and still is used as a tool by the dominant culture to dehumanize us as a people. We, as Indigenous people, truly believe that the spirits of our ancestors watch over us. Every ceremony that we conduct is proof of that. When we raise our pipes to pray, it is they, the ancestors, that we ask for help. Now it is they, the ancestors, who need our help. When they take our ancestors and sacred items and put them in museums and collections all over the world, not only are they disrespecting the ones that went before us, but also the ones that are living today. Okay, next slide. And Honor Keeler works with me on international repatriation. I just had to include her name. Next slide, please. United Nations Declaration. It gives us that it's a bare minimum of how to respect the Indigenous people. Next slide, please. But not all is lost. When I see our children standing around a tree, back to that picture, please. Over here. Our children of our community, there were a lot of suicides in that area, and they went there to get a mask, a sacred mask. Those children were standing around that tree singing the honor song to honor the spirits of the trees. Then I know that they know how important it is to protect the environment. When they are drumming, that was outlawed, that was banned. My father could never do that. I could never do that as a child. So the children of El Subukduk, the spirit of trees and the spirit of the drum, it is so important. We are still here. And so I just want one last quote by the late Charlie Labrador, Mi'kmaq elder from Kejimkujik, Nova Scotia, where the petroglyphs are. 500 years ago, our ancestors were standing at the shoreline with our hands extended in friendship. Here we are, over 500 years later, we are still standing here with our hands extended in friendship. I am saying this to the world because the indigenous people of this land, we have a lot to teach. We have a lot to teach. We love the land. We have morals and values that our ancestors carried. And so we will be guided. We are the dreamers. We are guided spiritually. I want to thank each and every one of you. I want to thank Chief Arva Lookinghorse for following his vision 30 years ago, no matter how difficult it's been, going place to place to deliver this message. Because right now, Mother Earth, all of Mother Earth is in trouble. We all need to come together, to pray together, to respect one another. Walalio Sudnogama, all my relations. Aho.
Once again, that was Donna Augustine. Our next presenter's name is going to be Jackie Andrews. She comes from the Little Wat Nation. Her presentation is going to be on the birthing rock and land protection. So I'd like to introduce Jackie Andrews.
Inchesh Michalalush. My name is Huckleberry Eyes from my grandpa Alec Peters as a baby because my eyes looked like they were navy blue and looked big like huckleberries. My English name is Jackie Andrew from Lil Wat Statlam. It's an honor to be here. And I just want to share my journey and my connection to this circle with other gatherings. This is my parents. My dad is Chief Leonard Andrew Lilwat, and my mom is Florence. She's a Peters. And I'm very honored to have my favorite aunt on my dad's side and my favorite uncle here, Franklin Andrew. He's very good friends, and he's ceremonied with Chief Orville Lookinghorse for several years, long before we started to. And this has brought a journey with me and my family as well. And I just wanted to share some, as I speak, the journey of our people. We come from Lil Wat Statlam in so-called British Columbia, which is unceded. Our people have the declaration of the Lillooet tribe that we signed, our ancestors signed in 1911. My father, Chief Leonard Andrew, and his two brothers, Uncle Frank and Uncle Fraser, as children were brought to our lake. And their elders spoke to them in our language and honed them to be a chief and spiritual leaders. And I didn't know this. I didn't know this until I was an adult. And another thing I didn't know was the bear medicine that my uncles prayed for. It's a Cookstum. My Uncle Frank and my late Uncle Fraser and our late Uncle Ernie Thavarge prayed for the bear medicine to return. They'd have bear sweats, and they wouldn't have a door on there. They would just have a little hole on the top, hundreds of rocks, couple hundred, several rocks. And they would do this, sometimes on their own, often on their own, because medicine people before them were taken away by the residential schools and colonization. And people call me a medicine woman, but I'm not. I'm not a true mechach dancer either, and I don't believe any of us are, but we're doing our best to bring the medicine the bear medicine back. So it's a really good teaching. I come from a very humble family where there's no sexism, there's no egos in spirituality. And that's my lesson with learning other ceremonies. When I go beyond my community in Statliam, when I travel across Turtle Island, some big lessons with sharing and learning other cultures. One thing that brought me to my people too was our roadblocks, and before that was our Statliam Declaration. And because, as you heard before through Kanahus, that Statliam is unceded, our ancestors got together in 1911 and signed the Declaration of the Lillooet Tribe. And every year our people gathered together in our 11 territories to remind each other what it is to be Statliam, and that this land is our inherent right and that we have to protect it. Our Lillooet people are really well known to protecting our land and our waterways. I was talking to our sister who just came up, Donna. I picked her up at the airport last night, and she was saying she heard our Lillooet songs during Oka. So Lillooet is also known as Mont Currie, and this is in the Pemberton area, and it's well known for skiing, snowboarding, biking. People come from all over the world in our territory because it also resides in Whistler. 3 million people visit Whistler every year. Every year, some of them just for the day, some of them overnight, but 3 million. There's a few thousand people in Pemberton, and we have about a couple thousand Lillooet. And a lot of lessons in our life through the roadblocks. We had a roadblock in 1975, and we had another one later in 1990. Our people have shared the Men's Warrior song, and we have, of course, our Women's Warrior song that we'll share later. We have our bear song. We have a grizzly bear song and a black bear song that comes from the Dan family. A lot of teachings. Also, what brought me to another circle, of course, many of us know about Standing Rock. I went there through my connections through my Uncle Frank, and because he's such close friends with Chief Orville, I just wanted to be of service, and I've met several people there. My friend River here, he goes, "Didn't I meet you at Standing Rock the other day?" And I'm like, oh my God. So it's very powerful connections that we'll never ever forget. And we need to stand up. And that's something I've had to do recently. We have a birthing rock. That's what we call it, a birthing rock, but we don't know what our ancestors called it in our language. At least I don't know. During our ancestors' times, we'd have medicine men, medicine people that would be on the top of each mountain in our valley. And we got beautiful mountains, snow-topped mountains, beautiful valleys, rivers, lakes. That's what Lillooet is named after. And our people are known to fish. We live off the land. We respect the animal spirits. And we're just starting to, we have a group that I'm just starting to support is some of our elders. And I brought some of our students as a teacher up to our birthing rock, and we're protecting it. And I wrote a letter to the Pemberton and to our chief and council and to Porka Bikes because they were going to put a race on the birthing rock. And I was pretty upset by it. And I have so much documentation. I can't, I have some papers I can share emails. But part of that was that I told them that people could get hurt. It doesn't matter if you're Statliam, Lilwat, if you're non-native, if you come from somewhere else. If you're going to go to our sacred territories, you could get hurt unknowingly. And that's something I wrote in our emails to Porka Bikes. And one of the responses they put back on Facebook was like, we understand that you're angry. And I'm like, I'm not angry. This is not anger. I've had another person say, oh, you're a radical. We're not a radical. We're protectors. We have a lot to teach, a lot to learn. I say I'm still a baby. And this is something that we're doing, though. So I just wanted to share. There's so much to share. We have a group of elders that I've shown pictures here that are formed a group. And they're called the Shkulakshtin Shkilanchut. And they wrote a letter to, because they're going to do development on this mountain, this sacred mountain. Not only are they bike racing it, and I did get them to stop racing around that sacred site. They put a little tiny fence, you know, those little rancher fences with wood. Any kid could step over it. I didn't think that was sufficient, and I told them this. And their response was that we're rerouting. We're still going ahead with the race on your mountain. We're just going to kind of reroute it. And I said, that's still unacceptable. And then they also said, well, we wrote a letter to your chief and council. And I wrote a letter to them, and I didn't hear back. So we still need to protect our lands and waterways. I like to call my family up here to help us sing the bear song. Somebody was requesting it. And there, like I said, there's so much more I could share here. And you can see some of the pictures of our ancestors. I met some new friends here from, well, some friends from Alaska, some friends from France, and I was teaching them about, we don't really go around and say we're from Canada. We say we're Lilwat Statliam, we're on Turtle Island. And some really good teachings there. So, you know, it's not me being angry, showing that Canadian flag with that fallen maple leaf on there. That's one of our warriors sharing that. So we're just going to share like one round of the bear song so that we know we have to be brief. Oh, this is my friend Manape too. He went to Standing Rock. He's loaning us his drum. Any other drums out there? We'll be brief, but part of this with the bear dance is that when they had a vision and the bear went up, they saw them across the river, and that's why they stood up like this, and then they're dancing. Kukshim. Cookshamkala. Again, this is my uncle, Franklin Andrew, my dad's brother, and my dad's younger sister, Cheryl, my cousin Leah Dan, and her sister, Linda Dan. So, Cookshamkala. Sorry, it's so brief. We're on a time limit. No Indian time. Cookshamkala.
Once again, that was Jackie Andrews with the Little Lot Nation. Our next presenter is going to be a short video from Bomzik, from Serpent River First Nation. He's Ojibwe from the Fish Clan. The video is going to be about how the sacred laws guide us to protecting the earth.
Bojon din we magnaduk. Mazan apkin ge go na be indigenous. Can be guk shibigaj wat and don't japa, no shane do them. Nishna be nini and dao. Nimkiaj bekang ninda. And gitchin and dum. Ya mom pee we gan on and guk. Gi ken man on ek going coming and zin one gnak nige when on in. Mioja. Asiwag. Gigwag. Benesiwag. Inchinachgaswag can go inchinachgade, Mom P. Nishnabikaking. Abedek we bescabing and Shnabe also Niki and Dapnanan Yabgidakim nan. Nishnabek Nigani wag Wiji Magadam Wataju Bakmazwe. And Nishnabek Nakitamen. Kapaskabe and Dapnanan Enwaying. Kapaskabe and Dapnanan Ganitoying. Gin win Mon Pienchabayan. Going gay going gosh me going. Hello everybody, my name is Isaac Murdoch. I come from Serpent River First Nation. I'm the Fish Clan. I am happy to be here. I am from the Anishinaabe Nation, and I'm here to talk to you about our lands and waters. We know that right now the world is suffering. The people are suffering, the animals are suffering, lots of things are suffering. And right now the world needs medicine. The world needs to be inspired. Because really it's the human being that is the cause of all these problems. And so it's the human being that has to seek help. And one of the greatest things that we can do to help ourselves, of course, is to help the environment, to help Mother Earth. And that's so important. You know, many years ago, about maybe 8 years ago, me and some friends left to go live in the forest. And we moved north of my reservation. We went into the forest. And from there we went to focus on the rekindling of our language, our land-based practices, food sustainability, all these things. And as a result of that, because we reintroduced, our native population back into the forest, it started to have an ecological effect. From there we were able to, stop some of the spraying that was happening, the poisonous spraying that they do in forests. We around where we live, we stopped that from happening. We're able to stop logging from happening. We're able to stop, participate in the having them stop the nuclear waste depository that they wanted to do there. So just by us being on the land, being who we are as Indigenous people, we're able to stop a whole bunch of destruction from happening. And so sometimes the biggest actions that we can take is actually going on the land and being our true authentic self. Many years ago, they always say that they talked about the Indian problem, but we were never a problem. We've always been part of the ecological solution. As a free people, we have our own education system. Kinamagewen. We have our own health system, our own, justice system. We have our own way of governance. We have our own constitution that's built into the laws of the land. Already. We're not short of anything. We have everything. And so when we go back to the land, again, we're providing a remedy. We're medicine to the forests. We're medicine to the badlands. We're medicine to the hills and the plains. We're medicines to the water. We're all medicines when we get back out there and be our true authentic self. And so I guess my message is, let's be who we are. And let's strengthen our culture and our ways of knowing and being so that we're able to help the lands and waters that way. When we do that, we automatically are now included back into the ecosystem. As Anishinaabe people, we are an indigenous species of our ecosystem. We're all truly connected in a very powerful way. So for example, when we were trying to stop the logging in our territory, and we actually did stop logging in our territory, we had offerings and ceremonies, and we asked for prayers from the spirits, and that the land itself would be able to guide us. And it worked. It actually worked. Prayer works. Offerings work. For real. Daga behwi dakawashinang we bamadasiyang. We asked for help so that we can have a good life. So prayer is really important. When we pray, it goes out into the world. Our offerings carry that prayer for us, that smoke from our pipes. Offer that prayer for us, and it can go far into the hard to reach places. And with prayer, nothing is impossible. So I believe that, giving our offerings, Gudabagudnamagom, Sema, Minwa, Minanan, we offer this tobacco and berries or whatever we're offering. It's powerful. I do not give up hope on this world. Yes, I've heard the prophecies. Yes, I've heard the stories. Yes, I'm aware of the teachings of what the old people used to say. But they also said, never give up. Believe. And so with that, it's such an honor to be able to speak with the world peace movement that is happening here. And I want to thank, of course, all of the elders and the stewards that are making this possible. And my heart goes out to all of you that are watching. And, may good health find you. May a little bit of happiness creep into your life. And, that you have food, a little bit of food to eat. That's all we need. I hope that you find that. And if you're suffering, I pray that you get well. And so with that, on gitsin and dum, mampi giganon and guk. It's been an honor to be able to speak with you. Bamapi guapnanim minwa, and I will see you later. So thank you very much, everybody. Bye.
All right, that was Bomgizek from the Serpent River First Nation Ojibwe Fish Clan. Our next presenter is going to be via video as well. Her name is Wonia Locke. She's going to do a quick update on the DAPL.
Hamindakiapi, Chante Washtenape, Juzapi, Winia Machiapi, Ian Muslata Hamataha. My name is Wonia Locke. I currently reside in Wakbala within Standing Rock. Currently, we are still fighting no DAPL. The Mini Wichoni Water is Life. I always like to acknowledge the ones that stood on the front lines, that stood on the riverbanks and prayed during one of the most difficult times in my life. And I always like to acknowledge the youth and the women that were the matriarchs of the movement that created and were steadfast in the movement. We are currently still fighting Dakota Access Pipeline. The Army Corps of Engineers still currently has jurisdiction. The easement for Dakota Access Pipeline was never granted by the Army Corps of Engineers. And so they made an announcement at the end of May that they weren't going to decide during the current Trump administration. With that being said, CRST is still in cooperative agreement. That Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe is still in cooperative agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers out of their original court ruling. And so that's a whole separate case that's pending right now. The other thing is Standing Rock Sioux Tribe also has litigation that's going on currently right now too. We're still steadfast. People ask how can they help with no DAPL, and the most important thing is to do divestment, knowing where your funding is at, knowing where your retirement, your life insurance, everything like that is at. And divestment is the key during this time, because this is how we can battle an existing pipeline like Dakota Access Pipeline. And the SES, it's a carbon capture pipeline that's following Dakota Access Pipeline. I'm really happy to announce that it was deadlocked in the state of South Dakota by South Dakota state legislation. And that was combined efforts of Dakota Real Action, IEN, and grassroots of Wppd, Wppd, and Standing Rock. That advocated for the last 4 years to shut down SES pipeline that was following Dakota Access Pipeline. So I'm really thankful for that. So we're still fighting no DAPL, and we're still taking every avenue and steps that we can. And so whatever infrastructure that you're facing within your home territory, that's how you fight no DAPL on our behalf. So if you have a uranium mine, or if you have a pipeline or a plant, or I'm talking chemical plants, or any type of fossil fuel infrastructure or extraction industry that's out there, including human trafficking, that's how you fight no DAPL on our behalf, is you protect the land and water where you're currently at. So with everything the way it is right now, like I said, everything is pending, and we're currently waiting to see which way the appellate court will go. And that's where we're currently at right now. The programs that came out of camp are really successful. There's the Mini Wichoni Nakijuze Wonspe. It's a student-led school, student-led based school, and it's a really incredible program. The students there are amazing and bright future leaders that are being formed right now. The other thing that came out was the Mini Wichoni Health Circle, and they're doing an amazing job at creating opportunities to heal, like healing the land through food sovereignty, healing our culture by revitalizing and reclaiming. So like they just did a buffalo harvest in Ishnatia, Wichalowampi, and they're just doing amazing things. So those are the positive aspects that came out of camp that are really successful right now. So we still continue to stand. We still encourage people to protect their land and water. And be sure to drink your water. Mini Wichoni, water is life. No DAPL. Shut down DAPL. Doksha.
Our next presenter is going to be a dual presentation. I would like to introduce Tala Tatusis. She comes from the Plains Cree, Mohawk, and Nakota Sioux from Sturgeon Lakes First Nation in Saskatchewan. She is going to do a presentation on the numbers behind the silence, missing and murdered Indigenous women's statistics and stories of healing. She is going to have a dual presentation with another presenter named Melanie Stoneman. She's an enrolled member of the Sikanju Oyate Rosebud in South Dakota, representing the Sihanouk Scouts, of North Dakota and Braveheart Women's Society. She is a missing and murdered Indigenous women's family advocacy and grassroots searches. So I'd like to present them up to do their presentation.
Danse nito dem Gakiao ni wagabantek tawalinis yung gats wea tukuen usko ni hihuin bagi tao say in Otsinia Treaty 6 territory. So my English name is Tala Tutusis, and I would really just like to say thank you to the organizers and everybody for doing this. And I'm going to do my best to present. And so I'm going to go through a quick slide right here that you'll see on the left. I don't know if you can see it very well, but I'll do my best. And it's really important to understand that when we're talking about missing and murdered Indigenous women, there are staggering statistics. And one of the biggest things that people don't take into consideration is how that is related to the extraction of resources of the earth, how it is related to poverty, how it is related to the fact that we are oppressed people and highly marginalized. These are big contributors. So you can't see it on the PowerPoint, but for those who are watching, a really good way to combat that would be to have proper governing systems of all that our people deal with, to have proper helpers in those places, to be able to create proper voice. Next slide. And so who are the missing and murdered Indigenous women movement? Well, mostly our grandmothers, their grandfathers, aunties, uncles, cousins, sisters, brothers, fathers, mothers, their nieces, their nephews, their relatives. They're mostly on the ground. And the movement is all over the Turtle Island, and people are just doing their best to try to find a way to make a change. Next slide. And so the statistics, which I can't see right now, I apologize for that, but just to sum it up, they're disproportionate rates, meaning extremely staggering rates of Indigenous women, men, girls, boys go missing and get murdered, get kidnapped, and those legal cases do not get seen as often as non-Indigenous people. In Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba, which are the statistics on the PowerPoint, it is basically 7.2 or 6.2 to 100,000. So majority of those people who've gone missing or who've been murdered between the year, I believe it is 2019 to 2021, it has been mostly Indigenous people. Next slide. And so this picture is of, I can't see. Oh, Gracie her many horses. So I remember when I first started learning about MMIW, I read an article in the Lakota Times, and it was talking about a man camp. And I never understood the correlation, the similarities. How is missing and murdered Indigenous women movement connected to the extraction of resources and protecting the earth? Well, in almost all locations and territories of Indigenous land where there are extractions of resources, where there's logging, where there's fracking, there are higher rates of sexualized violence against Indigenous people. And when you come to an Indigenous community and you are non-Indigenous and you are not from that land, the legalities around that are most people have to be dealt with outside legal court systems, not within our own communities. It's a jurisdiction issue. So a lot of the times when people try to find out what's going on to our people, and it's done by other people, it gets lost in translation. So the cases go cold, or they get unsolved, or they just don't get dealt with. Gracie her many horses is quoted having had noticed a 4-year-old running away from a man camp, had been SA'd, sexually assaulted, seeing a teenage boy who had been sexually assaulted. These are things she saw as a retired Federal Bureau of Investigation agent. These are serious, serious issues because these are our communities where this is happening, where the extraction of resources are continuing. And not only extraction of resources, but they are, what is the word I should be using? Just a complete assault on our people, not only the land, but our women, our children, our men, our teenagers. Next slide. So this is a quick video, and we'll just skip the video because it's very long. But in Saskatchewan, Alberta, Manitoba, I think this is just Edmonton alone, there's intervention support that you can call a crisis number. And then there's also, families can get information about justice system, legal processes, updates, criminal investigations, court proceedings, fatality inquiries involving loved ones connected to missing and murdered Indigenous women of Canada. So there are some strategies to help by the government, but majority of it is not Indigenous-led, nor is it Indigenous-focused. And that's what's happening. That's one of our loopholes that we're struggling with. We'll just skip through the next slide and the next one. And then the next one, sorry. And keep going, yep. And so if we think about our calls to action, how are we going to address this? Next slide. I want you to look at these pictures. These are pictures from Sylvia McAdams' doctoral thesis, which hasn't been published yet. But they're topless, the dresses are short, they're tattooed, their breasts are showing. And if you have to ask yourself why they're dressed this way, do they look fully dressed? Are those from our tribes? I remember she showed us to this at our school. I'm a Master's of Indigenous Social Work student. I graduate next week. And part of our orientation was Sylvia McAdams' presentation. And what she shared with us was, prior to colonialism, we dressed according to climate. So in the Plains area, it was so warm that we dressed practically, meaning we were topless and our dresses were very short. We didn't have hypersexuality of our bodies because we didn't deal with hypersexuality. That was a part of colonialism. That was part of the sexual abuse and sexual assault of the settlers and colonial contact. So when you look at that picture like this, I remember when I thought about this, I thought about modesty, I thought about traditional teachings of being told to cover up. I thought about being told that when sexual assault victims come forward, they're asked in a police report, what were you wearing? Were you drunk? These are victim-blaming statements. And it's the same thing if you think about consent and sovereignty of land. When we stand up and we say, you shouldn't dig here, you shouldn't pick this, they continually say that we made agreements allowing it to, which is not true, because lack of consent is not truth. And that is so important to understand how consent relates to everything. Next slide. So for me, I wanted to bring forth a story that I learned with ribbon skirts for myself, because I questioned when I seen pictures like this. It's a picture from like the 1800s or 1900s, black and white picture of women wearing dresses with ribbons on it. And a lot of people used that picture and would say things like, this is what we do, this is how we wear things, and we were modest and we covered up. But we never had a need for that. We had societies, we had protection, we had laws and discipline. And one of the greatest laws that we have is kinship. Next slide. And so how do we bring back the memory and the awareness of what we used to do, and how do we protect our land and protect our people? We have to remember stories like of Desawi, White Buffalo Calf Woman. When those two scouts came, they thought of that woman inappropriately, and she was a sacred being. And she came to him and she opened up her robe and she closed it. And when she opened it up again, he became bones. And that story helped heal me as a sexual assault survivor to know that there was nothing I did to ask for that. And in the same way, when we learn to uplift our survivors, we start to talk about sovereignty and consent, we will start to understand how to protect our land and raise up more of our people so that they will understand how to protect their land. Because when you can't protect your own body, you will have a hard time advocating for the Earth's body. That is so important to understand. When you understand body autonomy, that you wouldn't dig in the earth without consent, without protocol, without tobacco, then you understand you won't touch another person's body without consent. They're not separated. Everything is interrelated and connected. Next slide. And so how do we create an awareness and change of this? Boundaries, kinship, protecting yourself, standing up for yourself. And next slide. And to end, I just want to say that I am so thankful for Paula and Orville and for the way that they carry themselves, and these grandmothers and these aunties, because this is what we need in order for us to address this. We need more kinship. Thank you.
Ampete Washte, Matakiapi, Chante Washte, Chuzapi. My name is Melanie Stoneman. I'm a Shichungu Lakota from Rosebud, South Dakota. I was asked by Paula in Orville to come and speak for World Peace and Prayer Day on the highlights of MMIW and something that's really dear to me. There's a lot of roles that we play in our societies, and I do a lot of work with the Braveheart Women's Society, and one of my roles is the spiritual food, our wasnas, and the buffalo. My role, I use every part of the buffalo. We do the buffalo songs and the ceremonies, and align ourselves as women to be the backbone of our nation, and try to revitalize, reawaken, and reseed our Ishnate coming of age ceremony, which is our part of our 7 sacred rites. And today I'm here on another behalf of Shawnee Scouts of North Dakota. We have a search and rescue team, and I started volunteering with this organization since 2017 when my daughter Lacey was trafficked, missing and trafficked into the cities. And it was kind of my give back that I got my daughter back. She's back, but she's not the same. She always says that it broke her spirit. So, currently she's suffering from a lot of drugs and alcohol, and the things that happened to her wasn't very good for her. And currently, sorry, it's an emotional moment. Currently, she's on a run and she's out there somewhere. So maybe she hears me and sees me and knows that I'm here to stand and tell her story and all the other missing women and men and LGBTQ people. So that's where it is for me today. So we want to share this women's song, this Dakota women's song, as encouragement for all the families and the people who are currently suffering in this MMIW movement.
This is for all our women, and it's a song of encouragement. And the Dakota words are for all our people, our women, to get together and draw strength, to take courage from each other, from the universe, from Creator, and to draw on the relatives who come. And when relatives come, they bring peace and comfort and joy, and they share whatever burdens we have. It encourages the women to take that strength and use that courage, because our way of life is hard. So this song was given to me through prayer, and we always use that to encourage the women who need strength, because we all do. We all need strength in some way, and we can draw that from each other through prayer, keeping our minds together, standing together. And this is hard work that these ladies do, and I support them in every way that they work to help the women. When we were driving here, we were on the outskirts of Regina, and I had heard about this on the news, that one woman was camping by the landfill in Regina on the eastern side, where we kind of take a shortcut around the city. And I was really saddened. When we came on that road, there was a little tent on the side of the road by the road into the landfill. And she was sitting there by herself asking for the landfill to be searched for the remains of her daughter. And I really, really felt for her. This was her child, her baby, that had been killed and missing. And as mothers, sometimes we know what happens to our children, where they are. It's something we carry instinctively. And it was so hard to see her sitting there like that by herself. Because in Manitoba, there were some women too that were demanding that the landfill be searched for the remains of some of our women. And it was stonewalled and denied by the white politicians for so long until Wppd got in as premier and he okayed the search of the landfill. And they discovered the names of a woman that was called Buffalo Woman because nobody knew who she was. And then finally she was identified, but there were, I believe, 2 women that were found in that landfill. And this is the kind of work that these women do to help our people. So I stand in support of them, and I want to sing this song for the women. Dakota wia ki priheri chiapi nita ki ahi hone priheri chiapi dakhor wichoch aki ote chike ohe Dakota wiaki prieri chiapi nita kuyeki ahi huni briheri chiapi dakhor wichoch aki ote chikeu ayu.
Thank you very much. It's really good that I have support standing beside me. It is a heavy topic in the things that we do with Saunders Scouts of North Dakota, and you can find us on Facebook. We have a website. We were able to raise enough funds to get 2 cadaver dogs and able to build a website to help us move forward. With my first screen, is my PowerPoint up? Now, some of these are just visuals that we're going to be having more for the people who are in the participating in the Zoom. The United States Department of Indian Affairs, basically there's a lot of statistics in there that talk about how many women experience violence in amounts. And sometimes I don't really like talking about statistics because there's a spirit involved. And it's not just about numbers. It's not just 5,721 people are missing in South Dakota in a certain amount of time. It's actually, they have a name and they have a spirit. And I always take a look at the MMIW as a spirit movement. Before we go out on searches, we offer tobacco and we offer spiritual food. And if they have an Indian name, we call their Indian name 4 times. We sing songs. We really try to maintain ourselves as humble as possible without, we can't have, people using drugs and alcohol while we're on searches. We also would like to continue on with our searches too, with all your support, even the support and prayers. If you could skip over to the slide. This is our logo, and talking about the victimization rates. It should be that with the White Buffalo Calf teachings is that we have what we call a zero tolerance. So no woman should be cussed at. No woman should be slapped or hit or kicked or dehumanized or left behind. Next slide. Human trafficking, a lot of people don't talk about the human trafficking components because they can't see it. It takes years before they actually can see and get data and collaborate with other organizations to even create some kind of system to intervene. Next slide, please. Just here lately, the representative out of North Dakota was able to get what they call a feather alert. And I think that's something that everyone within the states and in Canada should be practicing their sovereignty. And part of that is coming up with your own alert systems to alert when someone is even a runaway or a silver alert. Next slide. When you're dealing with the MMIW family organized searches, one of the main things is that the families end up doing all the searches from the beginning. There is no such thing as having to wait 24 hours to do your search. Also, there's a lot of planning that's involved in these searches. And it seems like a lot of tribal governments make it harder. Even police departments make it harder. Even investigators, it's such a process that I believe that we've been fighting for 500 years since Columbus have landed. And I always go back 500 years because that's such a genocidal statement to say whatever they do to our land, they do to our women and our children. And it's considered a war tactic when they attack our water resources and our land and our food resources, which I believe is coming, and we're already seeing it with the current tariffs, and our buffalo can't roam the way they used to roam. And as I step outside, I seen a bunch of strawberries growing on the ground in every footstep that I took, and that was very beautiful. So I'd like to say thank you for inviting us here. Thank you for holding this space, and I'm going to end with a song that my son had made for my daughter when she went missing, and he would sing it to me because it took 2 weeks to find her, and I finally kind of built the courage up to sing this song and kind of remember my son in that way, but also remember all the MMIW people of the world like that. Yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, away, away, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, yeah, hey, yeah, away, yeah, away, away, yeah, hey, yeah, hey, yeah. Hey ya, ya hey ya, away ya, away away yo hey yo hey, ya hey ya. Sorry. That's all I can do right now. I apologize. Thank you.
So again, that was Mulaney Stoneman and Tala Tutsis with the Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women movement. Our next presenter comes from a guy Dakota. His name is Josh Denny, and he's here to share of his ride that he founded. It's a prayer ride for protecting the Great Basin of Nevada, and he has a short video to share as well.
Thank you, Hopi. First of all, I want to thank Paul First Nation to allow me to be here and speak on your land. I come from the Agaitakata Paiute tribe. That's one of our bands. We've got 28 reservations in the Great Basin of Nevada. And before I start my talk, I'd like to share a short film. Prayer for me is connecting with Mother Earth, with our spirits, with our heart, for healing and guidance, and staying connected to our loved ones that we have lost in the past. I don't feel that we could live this life without prayer. Prayer is what gets us through the hard times, when we're lost, when we're angry, confused. Prayer is what is the answer. We did the first prayer horse ride 2022 in March in honor of my brother Myron. When I'm out there, when I'm on the land, I just feel really strong energy of being there because it reminds me of how my ancestors traveled. You know, want to continue prayers for this land, for their water, for their well-being, for their sick, you know, with alcoholism, drug addiction, mental health. I see more and more of the kids, the youth, are stuck in the houses playing video games. And I'm like, what happened to going outside and riding a horse? That really touches my heart. When you hear a young man coming into himself, you know, coming out of a shell and just put his heart into these songs, it's healing because this is what our focus is on, is the kids.
Be thankful for your life. That's what it says. Wichoni, which is life. My uncle, which you've given me. So I'm singing about the life that you have given me, and I'm thankful.
I want to thank Azani for, you know, your songs. Your songs are beautiful and strong. And we want to pray against those industries that are wanting to come in and destroy their sacred lands. Back in the 1800s, you said that there was a white horse that would run through the valley, and the people would want to catch it, touch it. You know, it was a prayer horse, a healing horse. I think that, you know, once we start connecting the youth with the horses, you know, that horse medicine will start coming back again. Thank you. So at the end there was Thacker Pass. That's the colonized name. Is better known as Puhima'a for our Paiute people. Puhima'a means rotten moon. There was 2 massacres that happened in this area. The first one was tribe to tribe. They say it was Pit River. And they said that the men were off hunting buffalo. Then when they were coming back, there was a large orange moon. And as they got closer, it started smelling really bad, like death. And so that's how that name of that mountain came to be, is Puhima, rotten moon. Second massacre that had happened was the 7th Cavalry. They came in early morning when our people was asleep. That was the time when they were moving our people onto reservations. And I can't remember, I think they said like 500 people were massacred at that time. But anyways, that was September 12, 1865. And we've been going through court to protect our, that land, that area. But the court, they had asked us to show proof that, a cemetery or something like that our people was there. But, we don't, the only proof that we have is our oral history, our oral stories. They were removed from that area, put into a pit, mass grave. And now, Lithium America, they are wanting to mine lithium for green energy transition for the Tesla battery cars, or Tesla batteries for their cars. It's the largest lithium mine in America, or in the world. It was third in North America, but now it's the largest in the world. GM, they partner with Lithium America. Let me look at my notes. General Motors invested $650 million into this project. DOE, Department of Energy, the largest loan in history, $2.6 billion they invested into this project. Now, this is a place where we go up and pray, where we harvest, where we hunt, and we still do today. But the courts, the companies, nobody's listening to us. Nobody hears our words. They pushed it through during the time of COVID, where we couldn't be there for the meetings or be present to protect that land. There's another mountain just north of there. It's called Disaster Peak. Disaster Peak is where they go up and they do their 4-day ceremony for their vision quest. They call it Disaster Peak because they said it's a real strong mountain where sometimes, from the stories that I've heard was that there was times where people didn't come back down because that mountain's so powerful. I haven't really been too much involved with that, keeping up with what's happening lately. What I know is they want to double the size of Thacker Pass. Also, in the same regional area, about 30 miles northeast is the McDermott Caldera, and on the Oregon border is Jendalee. And I would say about 50, 60 miles radius this mine would be, open pit mine. And we're still, raising our voices, we're still having our ceremonies and fighting to protect the land. But I think for us, that's most important is to stay in prayer, educate, our allies, educate our own people, and just keep going back to the land and pray. So that's Thacker Pass. My tribe, Walker River, we are 4 hours south. South. We are northern Paiute, closer towards the California border. And we're facing the largest copper mine in North America, which is called Hood Bay. It's the Mesa Valley Project. And we're at the beginnings of this project here, so there's really not too many, too much information, but this is a 20-year life expectancy mine. Right now they have the air quality permit and the water quality permitting. For us, we're the Great Basin, so we have a lot of sink lakes, lakes. That's where they end. That's where we used to go harvest our fish. Well, in our lake, we don't have any more fish because of the contamination from Anaconda, which you guys saw last night or yesterday, the interview. Hood Bay is supposed to be 2 times bigger than Anaconda, just on the other side of the mountain range. What they want to do is they want to divert the water from the Mesa Valley area to the Smith Valley area so that they could process and do what they got to do with that water. They said that they're going to keep the water clean by going 900 feet under the water tables. Well, when they're done using this water, they said they're going to clean the water up, put it back in the ground. And that's going to go back into our rivers, go back into our sinks, into our reservoirs, into, our crops. And, we're still fighting. We started a coalition called Community Right to Know. We have our allies, nonprofits that are standing with us to oppose this project. We have slowed it down. They're supposed to start the project in February, I believe, but they pushed it back to the fall. So hopefully, we can keep finding ways to keep holding them off and pushing them back. And then we have southern Nevada. We have the Rhyolite mine, which is another lithium mine. And that one's life expectancy is 22 years. 170,000 tons of lithium supposed to be pulled out of there per year for 3 years. After 3 years, it's supposed to double. Right now, we are fighting to protect 80% of our lands from geothermal, from solar, from mining. And what BLM is doing, BLM is Bureau of Land Management, they are wanting to privatize these lands to eliminate some of the permitting to fast track and privatize to these companies. So those are one of the fights that we're into right now, opposing the land sales. I had said the other day, they don't have the right to sell our lands. They are Bureau of Land Management, not landowners. They have the responsibility to protect that land, for us to continue to go onto that land and pray, to harvest, to gather our traditional medicines and food. But they haven't been doing that, They just keep breaking policy, breaking treaties. And we have to just keep reminding them of their responsibilities. We start at the lower level. They act like they don't know what's going on. So, little history on this prayer horse ride is it was started with my brother Myron Dewey and I. We talked about doing something that would reconnect our people, bringing us back into unity. When he passed away, I wanted to honor that and remember the teachings that he brought to me. So, did the first horse ride back in March 2022, and today this is our 4th year. We still continue to ride in remembrance of Myron, but also the teachings that he brought to us to do our own work, to educate ourselves about the land, the water, the air, protecting our people, teaching the kids, because what we're facing now is going to be 10 times worse for the next generation. Our vision of this ride is a continuance of the vision of our ancestors. Our ancestor is Wovoka, our Paiute prophet who had a second coming of the ghost dance. He talked about the return of the buffalo, peace and harmony, cross-culture teachings. That's what we're doing now. Living righteous, living with love and compassion. That one day, all the non-natives gonna be gone. We're gonna have our land back. But we all have to live good. We all have to remember where we come from and live in a good way. Just be humble. And so, we ride in the vision of our ancestors for prayer, healing, awareness, and unity to revitalize our culture, our language, and our freedom of religion. And we started practicing that. We are bringing a lodge to each of these sacred sites so that we could go back once a month to bring prayer back to these areas. It's been good. Went back to one of the sacred sites. Our lodge has been taken down, the structure, but that's not going to stop us. We'll keep coming back in prayer. I want to thank Arvo and Paula for having me here to speak and bring the issues that we face. And again, I want to thank everybody for your time. Pijayu.
All right, once again, that was Josh Denny from the Walker River Paiute Tribe of Nevada. Our next presenter is going to join us via video. Her name is Carla Ray Marshall from Minikoju, Oglala, Lakota. She is going to do a presentation on the Black Hills, or Hesapa, the Lakota sacred Black Hills.
Wppd Wash Day. It's a good day to be Indigenous. My name is Carla Marshall. I'm a Tetawan Lakota grandmother, earth advocate, and water protector. I will be presenting a brief update about protecting our sacred Black Hills from modern day mining. First, I would like to apologize for the way I sound, as I have a cold, and so it sounds like I'm talking through my nose. Anyway, I would like to start my presentation with a short video that we posted on our social media and gives you a idea of what we're up against in a nutshell.
1/5 of the Black Hills, 270,000 acres, is under active mining claims. These claims are located upstream from our rivers, which all feed into the Missouri. If only a fraction of these claims became large-scale mines, the Black Hills would never be the same. 15 years, Black Hills Clean Water Alliance and our allies have successfully blocked new uranium mining in the Black Hills. We continue to be a loud, strong voice of opposition and a powerful advocate for protecting our precious water. But we need your help. We face an unprecedented push for new mining with reduced regulatory oversight. Protecting Black Hills water is crucial, now more than ever.
So why do we work so hard to protect our sacred Hesapa? It's because Hesapa holds our Ocheti Shakoi creation story, our coming into being as human beings. They hold our ancient teachings, our stories, and historical events. They hold eons of memory in our DNA, and water is our main entity. We must protect water at all costs. And since time immemorial, Hesapa has been known to us as Wamake Oganake Ichante, the heart of everything that is. And relatively speaking, the Hesapa is not that big. It is considered an ancient oasis on the prairie that holds our sacred sites, provides us with our natural medicines, food, and healing waters, and homes to thousands of species of wildlife and plant nations. This slide shows a historical map that I used to create a poster of where some of our well-known sacred sites are. So you have Peshla, there's Wind Cave, there's Matotipila, Bear Butte. So those are some of the well-known sites. And some of them, like Bear Butte, is a state park, so that is protected. Peshla was purchased back, I guess we could say that, and that is protected under trust status now. Wind Cave is a national park. But if you look at the map and you see that red ring, that is known as the Sacred Hoop Racetrack. So historically, the Black Hills did not have reservoirs or lakes or dams. Those were done after colonization, where they came in and seen the importance of water, seen the importance of the Black Hills, and so they started creating reservoirs. So this slide shows the Black Hills watersheds, and each one of them has dams or reservoirs on them, or that these creeks flow into them so that they can reserve water for livestock or recreation. South Dakota receives huge revenues off of tourism here in the Black Hills. So this is Pactola Reservoir, and it is fed by the Upper Rapid Creek watershed, and then it flows downstream to the Lower Rapid Creek watershed. This image shows the waterways that flow out of the Black Hills, and it says that amid the splendid scenery of the Black Hills National Forest are 11 reservoirs, 30 campgrounds, picnic areas, 1,300 miles of streams, 13,000 acres of wilderness, and 353 miles of trails. But like I said, the South Dakota receives a lot of revenue off the Black Hills just from tourism. This doesn't include some of the lands that are leased to cattle ranchers. So the Hesapa is unceded treaty territory. The U.S. government signed treaties in 1825, 1851, and 1868. Treaties are the supreme law of the land, but of course the United States broke every treaty through genocide, lies, and broken promises. In 1872, the General Mining Act was passed and is still in use today. Gold was discovered in French Creek in 1874. Whites miners came into the Black Hills illegally. Our ancestors asked for help and they received no help. To date, the Great Sioux Nation has refused to sell the Hesapa. This slide shows some of the scars that have been left behind by mining. So in the top left corner is the historic Homestake gold mine, which was a massive underground mine and also has this open cut in Lead, South Dakota. Gold was mined from 1876 to 2001 when Homestake closed the doors. This open cut is 1,200 feet deep and a half a mile wide. In the bottom right corner is the Gilt Edge, which is an abandoned gold mine turned into a Superfund site in 1999. EPA and South Dakota signed an agreement with Agnica Eagle, but this company ended the agreement in July of 2024. So this next slide is environmental damages downstream, a toxic legacy, and who is responsible for reclamation. So Whitewood Creek is a tributary of the North Branch of the Cheyenne River and provides water to rural and tribal communities in western South Dakota. Homestake used creeks as tailings and municipal water dumps for nearly 100 years. There was heavy metals such as lead, mercury, which traveled 200 miles downstream, reaching the Oahe Reservoir on the Missouri River. In 1981, Whitewood Creek became a Superfund site and was delisted in 1996. Also, Homestake, who had to do reclamation work in 2006, they had a 633,000 gallon cyanide solution spill in the Grizzly Gulch tailings impound. Why wasn't this deemed a Superfund site? Also, there are about 170 abandoned uranium mines and prospects in Custer and Fall River counties in southern Black Hills, another 100 in the northwest corner of South Dakota. Now I'll be giving you a brief on the current active mining claims in the Black Hills. As of February 2025, there are over 270,000 acres of active mining claims in the Black Hills. If you look at this map, you see the blackened areas. Those are active mining claims. This is about a 3.5 growth from our May 2024 map. This new map also shows that some active claims intrude into the boundaries of our sacred site, Peshla. Currently, the Wharf Gold Mine is a 24/7, 365 days operation located in the northern Black Hills and is the only large-scale operating mine in the state of South Dakota. And they are expanding by 40 acres. A few years ago, I did some research on this wharf mine and found that they had reported 189 accidental spills between 1983 and 2003. Now, since wharf is on private land, it's their land, they've damaged it, they do have to report to the state with any toxic spills. So most of the spills were cyanide solution. Now I'm going to speed it up a bit. So these are some of the current projects that we are monitoring. Over in on the Wyoming side, in the Bear Lodge, there's Matotipila, but close to that area, there's rare earths. Then in gold, there's, like I said, mentioned the wharf. There's also Dakota Gold, which has several projects in the Maitland area. There's also Solitario Resources. There's 2 operation on federal land, Golden Rewards and the Ponderosa. And then, like I mentioned, Agnica Eagle. Their lease terminated, so they're out. But F3 Gold, we were able to stop their Jenny Gulch project by getting a 20,000 acre mineral withdrawal around the Pactola area, and that would be protecting that area for a 20-year period. The next slide shows that we are now fighting graphite. We just recently finished up a public comment period for that. There's also lithium. We have all these companies coming in and wanting to mine for lithium. First, they start out as exploration. We're not going to mine, we're just going to explore, but that still could open that door up for large scale mines. And then uranium. We have been fighting uranium for the past 15 years. We have stopped Power Tech, which is now Encore, but they are starting to ramp up, trying to get mining done in the Dewey Burdock area, which is in the southern part of the Black Hills. On the graphite, that area is close to Peshla. And then there's a uranium mining company called Clean Nuclear Energy, which is an oxymoron because nuclear energy is not clean, but they want to do some exploration drilling in a place known as Craven Canyon. So in May, I guess last month, we wrapped up 2 important comment periods. For the graphite, that was done through the Forest Service, and we had 2,146 comments that were submitted to the Forest Service, and the majority of them said no. No to this graphite mining close to our sacred site. Like I said, they're adjacent to Peshla, which is a vital sacred site to Lakota and allies. Through our research, we found that 16 of the 18 drill pads are within 2 miles of the Peshla, which would cause noise, traffic, lights from drilling, and would disturb spiritual ceremonies, wildlife, and area residents. And just a quick background that 2,022 acres in the Peshla area were purchased by tribes, and that was put in trust land in 2016. So for this new uranium exploration project, we found that Craven Canyon is actually Ihunkia Opaha, or the ancient valley. Ihunkia Opaha. And we found there was a couple other names, but this one looks to be the most accurate. Now, Craven Canyon is a 7,000-year-old site that has rock art and other artifacts. It holds cultural and archaeological and scientific value. So we are very much committed to stopping this project in this sacred site. The comments were due by May 14th, and that was through the state. The state received 320 comments, and 33 people submitted intervention petitions. So they are interveners, and this is now deemed a project that is contested. So this will go to hearings through the state, and so we are planning to be prepared to travel to Pierre, or hopefully they'll have it here in Rapid City. Either way, it's going to be a long fight. This next slide shows that under the NEPA regulations, there is a process that many of these projects must take and be in compliance with rules and regulations. However, the Trump administration is trying to fast track energy projects by bypassing NEPA regulations. And with that, I will say Lila Wopila, thank you for listening to our plight here in the Gesapa. We have a long struggle ahead of us in order to protect our water and our sacred way of life. For more information, visit us at bhcleanwateralliance.org or find us on social media. Thank you.
All right, once again, that was Carla Ray Marshall with the protection of Gesapa, or the Lakota Black Hills. Our next presenter is author of the book, The Sacred Bundle Unborn. Her name is Morningstar McCready. She is here to do a presentation on the sterilization of Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit women. So I'd like to present author Morningstar McCready.
Sneesh. Wahwa. I want to acknowledge and thank Paula and Orville. Many, many years ago, when I was working in Cold Lake, well, actually it was Grand Center, I was working at the Friendship Center. My then boss was Linda Manus Dene from Cold Lake First Nation. And I was there as a summer student. At that time, I had a waking vision in my office, which I immediately went to go and speak with Linda about. I said, Linda, I saw the most beautiful gathering. It was a gathering of hundreds of our elders. They came to one place and they were praying. They were praying for the earth. They were praying for humanity. They were praying for creation. All our relations, the four-legged, the winged, the sacred beings in the oceans and waters, all creation. It was so profound and impactful. Within that year, I found myself on the blood reserve. And that was the first time I met Arvo. That gathering, there were over 100, if I remember correctly, elders from throughout Turtle Island that had gathered, just as was shown to me in this wakened vision. And the gathering was for exactly the fulfillment of those prayers. And there was a prophecy that had been fulfilled, and that prophecy was the gathering itself, and that there was an elder, Mohawk, who read the wampum belt for the first time in over 400 years. To say that I actually was able to live and experience the vision that was shown to me was in itself very impactful. And that was the first time that I had the honor to be amongst the elders and to pray with White Calf Buffalo Woman's Pipe. My life hasn't been the same since. So what I'm here today to talk about is And thank you, Paula, because it wasn't a part of the schedule. I just got off a webinar this morning, which the Survivors Circle for Reproductive Justice hosted. And the webinar that they hosted had to do with the book, the second edition of Sacred Bundles Unborn. To keep it as simple as possible, historically, we may or may not be aware that sterilizations of Indigenous, Métis, Inuit women and men occurred in the sanatories, in the residential schools and Indian hospitals. When put in that perspective, it's all as though it were past tense and no longer occurring, which couldn't be further from the truth. I am a survivor, and the most recent reported sterilization that was brought to the attention of Senator Yvonne Boyer was in 2024. So as I stand here and share with you today in a good way, I can assure you that somewhere on Turtle Island, women, girls, men, specifically women and girls, though, in their most vulnerable state of pregnancy, that are going to a hospital to deliver their baby, their sacred bundle, which is why I call it Sacred Bundle Unborn. This is when they are either forced or coerced into sterilization. In the book, there are 20 contributors. I call them the fire keepers. I think that fire keepers is self-explanatory. Since 2017, when I came forward and approached my attorney, Alyssa Lombard, because I am a part of litigation here in Canada, we have collectively, Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit women, as well as allies, are moving forward progressively and taking action to stand up and have forced coerced of sterilizations criminalized in Canada. In the book, I also acknowledge the Peruvian women, whereupon there were, at least to my knowledge, over 200,000 women that were sterilized. I also have a Greenlandic journalist who's Indigenous from Greenland, contributed to the book as well. They had in Greenland what was called the IUD campaign in the 60s and the 70s. Many of the survivors, whether they were girls or women, were unaware that they were sterilized by virtue of an IUD. The various forms of sterilization are in the form of IUDs, hysterectomies, tubal ligations. In Canada, in recent history, about 4 years ago, there was a doctor that was there were girls that were in the child welfare system, ages 10 to 12, that were forced to have IUDs placed in them. Some of the other work that has been ongoing or occurred here by allies, Dr. Ewan Affleck, who worked amongst the Inuit and in the Northwest Territories as well, as a doctor, as a physician, he produced a film titled The Unforgotten. It's a beautiful film. It can be found online, The Unforgotten. In that film, I do the voiceover for the introduction of this film, which is called Birth. In that segment of the documentary, I talk a lot about the prevailing attitudes, the historical prevailing attitudes of politicians in Canada that justify sterilizations. So I want to end my presentation on the note that though this is ongoing, though as I share today in this moment with you, the knowledge that somewhere on Turtle Island, women and girls are being sterilized, it is not a historical past tense event, it's ongoing. At the same time, there are very focused groups of allies, Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit women, coordinated efforts to have it criminalized. Recently, Senator Yvonne Boyer introduced Bill S-228. When, and I'm knocking on wood here, this bill gets passed, sterilizations will be criminalized in Canada. So I just want to acknowledge, again, all of the women, the grandmothers, the aunties, and the men who had been subjected to sterilizations, and for us to just be conscious and aware that this is ongoing. And I think the repercussions of what happens to us by being sterilized are obvious and evident when we think in terms of the upcoming 7 generations that will not be born because of sterilizations. Hi, hi.
Thank you. Once again, that was author Morningstar McCready. We have a video that we are going to play from Burrito Cordoba. He's 96 years old, and he is going to share a prayer that is meant for fighting to protect the Amazon. And we also have Hector Perez Pacheco here to translate after we play the video.
Fegen radeno. Ular dhoni wete kar beni wete karagan kam the bag. Biti aku radhi aku warai aku pahana zaran kam the kanar kam the bag. Kuran kam the boman kam the bag. Akan teke kamru teke zirin teke karin teke bag. Yenu teke wal teke wahan teke zean teke ugal teke kagel teke bag. Ukari de Kurinai, Kuarai, Tavarai, Purumaya, Dian County, Harvard County, Koru County, Zeran County, Canal County Bay. Ariel City Nemer, Tete Nemer, Yagi Wetter, Ogway Wetter. I can over Kiwan over Yagi over Tiri over Bay. I can Kamure, Pan, Zeran County, Canal County, Goran County, Bowen County, Kuga County, Tawa County, Zera County, Bowen County, Ita Teki, Carita Teki Bay. Herarita Navi, Carita, Dia Navi, Corva Navi, Gabo Tavi, Carita Bay. Heriori Mageni, Wetter, Why Wetter. Erarthonidi, Vanity, Sonati, Vanity, Dianavic, Corvanavic bag. Emaituravic, Amuravic bag. Emagita Navic, Comotavic bag. Garidavic, Guridavic bag. Etanavic, Wetanavic bag. Erquanati, Tagati, Kagati, Samudi, Dianbic, Orwan Beceta bag. Bueno, Pahana. Felicito. Un cordial saludo. La ruta Lineamientos en Sunea y Beniosan, Diribsan, Akisan, Dibusan, Kakisa. Los comunicadores, todas las energías a Pahana y a sus gentes, a sus familias, a sus pueblos, llevarán la ruta Lineamientos con todos los calendarios de su unidad, llamamos nosotros de los Estados Unidos. Los calendadores, los lineadores, los marcadores, los probadores. la tecnología energías, todos los calendarios del SUNIA, todos los territorios de Estados Unidos, llevará todos los lineamientos del cielo. Llamamos Sirina Karina. Pajana, usted ya sabe conmigo. Mi movimiento Ruta Línea Mío, integración cultural y espiritual, oralidad, es llamando Taita Mayores Sirina Karina del cielo, que llama un llamados ponentes, lineamientos, una oralidad fuerte, derechos, pastón origen. Pastón origen se llama quiera chicarar los mojonamientos. Hoy estoy trabajando o estamos trabajando aquí todos los territorios originarios ancestral Colombia. Estamos lineando toda la constitución planeta origen ancestral con el corte constitucional nacional, internacional y mundial. Estamos removiendo todas las tecnologías y filosóficos, argumentándole todos los pacíficos dignos oralidades para todos los tratamientos territorial y cultural. Estamos una oralidad vidas por territorial y cultural, multiétnico y pluricultural, origen ancestral. Estamos con la Constitución Planeta a origen ancestral de todos los términos de planetas del mundo. Así estamos removiendo acá todos los México, Suiza, Alemania, Finlandia, Noruegas, en todos los territorios planificados, justificados, relacionados, republicados, hasta todos los territorios de Inglaterra también, y México y Canadá, Suiza y Alemania. Estamos remarcando porque como está trabajando la Sol, la Luna y estrellas, Sol está marcando en todos los territorios del planeta. Así tener bien unificado, bien energiado, energía ética alto y abajo. Y quiere decir que es la tierra. Primero, en la constitución que constituyó los planetas del mundo, Sirina Karna del cielo, que llamamos Madre Planeta Tierra. Llevaremos todos los márgenes que han entregado el Taita Mayor Sira, cómo teníamos que trabajarnos, cómo teníamos que coordinarnos. Así estamos llevando hoy día hacia adelante. Nunca queremos salir caídos ni un paso para atrás, sino hacia adelante. Suniua. Muchas felicidades, muchas alegrías.
Again, my name is Hector Perez Pacheco. I am a Quechua from the Confederation of Tahuantinsuyo. Our relative who just spoke, Mr. Benito Cordada, he is from the jungles of Colombia. His message is in the form of a prayer, but it's also in form of a declaration. And as he gives his declaration, he speaks about the knowledge of the land. He also speaks to all the native people around the world, up and down the hemisphere, It is a call to organize us in the rights of our people and of the land, working in conjunction with our ancestral knowledge and connection to the plight that we are all experiencing. He's asked us to understand our cultural and ancestral understanding and commitment to Mother Earth. He also has asked us to bring our territories in alignment, working towards a world that is in harmony and balance from Canada to South America. He also stressed the unification with a similar message that Mother Earth needs all of us to be involved in protecting her. He shares this message from the Amazon jungles of Colombia. Thank you.
Thank you, Hector, for translating for us. We have a few videos of some presenters that were unable to make it. One of the presenters is Al Gore's daughter, Karina Gore. She is a founder and executive director for the Center of Earth Ethics at the Union Theological Seminary in New York, New York. So we are going to play her video and hope you enjoy it.
Hello, my name is Karina Gore, and I am here at the Center for Earth Ethics at Union Theological Seminary in New York City, where I work. I want to give you my warm greetings and my heartfelt thanks for inviting me to give a message today. I want to ask permission with gratitude from elders there to speak about World Peace and Prayer Day and the importance of this call from my perspective. And you will maybe notice that I have right behind me a picture of Arvel Looking Horse, who was here actually 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, at a gathering. It was a ceremonial gathering as well as a conference that was really the force behind us starting this Center for Earth Ethics. And so we actually have that picture of him on our wall all the time. And I thought that it was nice to be able to give you this message from this place and to give at the same time honor and thanks to Orville and to the whole community and lineage and people that he represents, and all of those beings that they have been in relationship with, that prophecy is in relationship with. We have really a lot of respect for that. And what we do at the Center for Earth Ethics is we do work in the intersection between the environment and spirituality. So you might also say ecology or nature or climate. There are lots of different words on the one hand, and spirituality or faith or religion, also morals, ethics. So this is the intersection that we do work in. And we do it in three main ways. We do some education, so we do some classes and workshops. And we also do convenings. We do gatherings and conferences and panel discussions and that kind of thing. And then the third way that we work is we call it movement building. So that's some advocacy work and some organizing work. And so we try to do those things all together. And we've been doing it for 10 years. And so I want to say that I'm really very moved by the message that Orville wrote. And I want to thank Paula as well, of course, who I know and I feel is a very important messenger, and the understanding that I get is in many ways, not through one individual or two individuals, but really through something far greater. And so to acknowledge Orville, to acknowledge Paula, and also to say that I do understand that this is coming from a place and a community and a lineage as well. And I am moved by the message of World Peace and Prayer Day. I understand when Orville writes, as the keeper of the sacred pipe, as somebody who's worked alongside Indigenous spiritual leaders from all over the world, that when he talks about the seriousness of the condition of Grandmother Earth, that is a very important thing to talk about. In many ways, when somebody says the climate crisis or the planetary emergency or those things, it's their way of saying the seriousness of the condition of Mother Earth. But the way that I understand it from Orville's message is that one thing we can do, and the prophecies say this, is we can go to our sacred sites of prayer. And we can be there in our own ways and have an energy shift towards healing. It makes a lot of sense to me because it seems to me as if this climate crisis is, and let me say also in acknowledging the elders that are there in the gathering with you all at World Peace and Prayer Day, respectfully, I also want to honor my own elders and say that I come from people that I respect, and that includes my grandparents. It includes both of my parents, and to say that my father is somebody whose life's work has really been in this calling to really warn people about a danger that's coming that will cause a lot of suffering and death, and he has been also trying to work for ways to have a positive vision that we work towards, to be that incentive to change our ways. But I want to acknowledge him and say that I've learned a lot in that way, and I'm grateful. I also want to say that this what they call climate crisis is about more than data and science and technology, as important as those things may be. It is really about relationship and about who we are as human beings. And so when I hear that call to our sacred sites, I hear that actually what needs to be healed is the relationship. The earth does not need fixing, but it is our human beings and our relationship to the earth that needs that healing and work. And so that's what can happen on this day in this way. And I am really grateful that we just had this gathering called Spirit of Place. That was the latest thing that we did as Center for Earth Ethics. And we did that actually in what you call the Hudson Valley, what many people call the Hudson Valley. And so you see, right, the other thing behind me is this map. And our friend Doug Tolchin made this map that is, I have one here, actually reflects that name from Mohican people, from Lenape people, Mohican Tuck, which is the river that flows both ways, or the waters that are in constant motion for the Hudson River. And so one of the things that's interesting is if you think about bioregions, then you start to think about, instead of state lines, and political lines like that, you think of bioregions, you think of where is our water from? What's our water? What's our soil? What other species do we share this planet with? Or this place, this bioregion with, where's the mountain range? Where does the wind come from? And all of those kinds of things, what things grow really well. And so that's been a really beautiful thing to start to become aware of waterways. Like, for example, the Mohawk River is the main tributary to the Hudson River. So it's all part of the same thing. If something happens in the Mohawk, it's going to start to affect the Mohican Tuck, what we call the Hudson. Mohawk is called Mohawk by everybody. And so this learning these waterways is really beautiful. And you look at it, of course, you see it looks kind of like a lung, or and of course it is a living body of water, and it comes all the way down to New York City, where we are here. Actually, where I work at the Center for Earth Ethics, and we do go down to the river sometimes. We go down there and we do a little ceremony there and look at the water. And it's like a sacred place for us. So I'm speaking to you here from that consciousness of our sacred site there, and that I have been there, and am thinking about that on World Peace and Prayer Day. And I'm really also understanding the way that knowing one place and really communing with one place can be like a portal to know the whole planet, because we can be in our senses, in our sentience. We can see the way that that things, we can see things like the water moving. We can hear things like the birds, or maybe sometimes the cars in the distance too. We hear that. We hear also sometimes we hear things in the distance. Sometimes we hear things close. That's a kind of a sentience that we have. We learn something from that. And we smell things, we touch things. We can feel the wind on our face. It's like a touch from the wind. And so that sentience that we can have in these places is a form of intelligence that is very, very important, And I think it can lead us to conscience. That sentience can lead us to conscience. I think that in this time when there's a lot of faith in technology and they talk about artificial intelligence, I think it's really important for us to understand that these beings in the natural world are relatives, as I have been taught, and so grateful to the teaching of Matakia Oyasin, all my relations. It's so deep and important for people to understand. Thank you for that, sharing that. But these other living beings, the fish, the birds, all of them are much more our relatives than robots or than artificial intelligence algorithms. And I think that our sentience can help us realize that, our sentience in these places. And then we can have more conscience because we can understand we're all belonging in the same home together, and start to realize that relationship can heal, and that there's sometimes unseen factors as well that we can be aware of. And the word spirit sometimes I know can be used to refer to energy, a kind of energy. And I think that is that's something that we can be aware of in our sacred sites, in our places where we hear that spirit of place. And so I'm very grateful for the call, for the invitation. I do believe that we can, with this level of intelligence, and with this kind of open heart and mind, we can come to a place of living in balance with nature. We can come to a place where the message will be about not just the seriousness of Grandmother Earth's condition, but my prayer is that it will also be about the healing and the betterness of this condition, because of the relationship, because of the care, because of the reciprocity, and us realizing that we can't only take, that we must also give. And so for all of this, I want to again say thank you. I feel very humble in giving this message about Spirit of Place. I send you again my respectful greetings for World Peace and Prayer Day, and I hope you have a really wonderful one. Many thanks.
Once again, that was Karina Gore. Our next presenter is coming in from Hawaii. Their names are Pua Case and Kalani Flores. Pua Case is the lead coordinator and project director of Mauna Kea in education and awareness. They are here to present the Mauna Kea as a beacon and unifier, mountain to ocean, connection, relationships, and alliances. Here's Pua Case and Kalani Flores.
Arano tātua paurua, maharo nui na tui ana, mai kia moku o kia ave, mai ka piko ka mauna o ake, inei, ai ki ao paurua. Huipui me ka nui me ka ramana, o te atua, huipui me ka lokahi, arono tātou, mai te rāhiti, te rātau, a tau i te hemana kukuluma vaina pū, mai te hookui, te halawai, te poino te hookui, mai te piko o luna, piri a wākea, mai te piko o laro, piri a papana moku, te piko o vaina. Me no tātou a pauroa, arono tātou, mahara nui na tui ana, arono tātou a pau.
Malana mai ka ume puna me hilo, hele mai kona me ko hala me, hamaku a he ka ele o waipi o e pola o mahiki, he uka o wai mea he awa ka wai hai, he kupe no ka waa o poli ahu, he pala mauna a wakea I luna, paakua hivi I ke ali I ka waa, oho hia I ka hana ana tue hie. Aloha mai kako, mai moku o ke ave from Hawaii Island. I'm Auntie Pua Case, and this is Kalani Flores. And we're here today to share with all of you. We wish we could be there. But from here, from Mauna Awakea, we begin with a prayer and we begin with our Oli, our chant that reminds us each time that we chant or we hear this chant that Mauna Kea is the sealant. It is the pillar, the center. It is the unifier that has brought so many of us together. It reminds us that when we anchor to a sacred place to protect it, that we are always attached to that place and we stand as strong as a mountain always. And of course, the last line of the chant is about joy. When we stand for something, the way we walk in the world, the things that we say and the actions that we do, let us have joy in our hearts so we're able to spread that vibration, and that vibration will connect to healing and to aloha, the true aloha that comes from here, from the Mauna, from this moku, indeed from this entire Pai'aina, from island to island of Hawaii.
And so we send our greetings of aloha from all four directions, from the rising of the sun to the setting of the sun, from the north to the south, and to the realms above, to the realm of Wakea, what we refer to as Wakea, also known as Sky Father, and to all those above us in the sun, the moon, the star nations, the Pleiades, the Makali'i, which we call all those above us, the A'a, Hokorea, Hikianalia, those star nations above us. We send our greetings and aloha to all those above and to all those below, to Papahanamoku, also known as Earth Mother, and to the realm between that connects all of us together. We send our greetings of aloha, of harmony and unity, and what we refer to in Hawaiian as lokahi. And so in Lokahi, we send our aloha to all of you with the prayers and ceremonies, and we'll be connecting with you on this particular day as we all gather together for astral prayers of harmony and unity, and of course, prayers of aloha.
And we'll be standing with you on June 21st in our own ceremonies, and also on June 24th. We'll be up on Mauna Kea. We'll be adorning the Mauna in gratitude. This is the day that we let the mountain know that we are grateful for all of the unification that has occurred, our alliances that we have with you, our dear friends and relatives, and all of the connections that we have made throughout the world, from here in Hawaii to every corner. So we'd like to share with you as just a celebration, because there aren't enough celebrations going on right now. So we're going to be celebrating through sharing this little piece of our lives, and this through this film, Standing Above the Clouds. I want to share with you a message from this film that is going around the world, a message from a film that features three mothers and our daughters, and what it takes to stand for something, as I know you all know that we've all been standing for so long, for our places, for our waters, from the heavens to the deep ocean. And we know that we are connected together and we're working really hard. So in the joy of knowing all of that, we'd like to share this piece of Standing Above the Clouds with you. And it features us on the ala. If you've been to Mauna Kea during our stance, you'll remember the ala hulukupuna, the roadway where the elders sat, where people gathered, where we danced and chanted and prayed together in one single commitment for Mauna Kea. And you'll hear the voice of a very special sister of mine, an angel now, as she speaks about healing and what's important when we all stand together. And you'll see a little clip of a ceremony that grounds us back, because we wish that we could be in ceremony with you as you're watching this. We wish that we could be there, and maybe next time we will. But from us here in Hawaii on this beautiful, misty, rainy day, as we share our aloha with you, and just really thank you for including us, and know that we are part of this huge movement, this bigger movement, this collective movement to send the vibration of healing and justice around the world. So mahalo to all of you, our dear friends. Thank you so much for the invitation, and know that we love you all dearly. From Mauna a Wakea to Moana Nui a Kea, from the mountain to the deep sea, we are with you in every way that we can be.
Laila mahalo nui na tuiana, arano tato, arano tato, arano tato a pauro a mama uanoa.
Kukia I mauna, eo, paikalima, paikalima, paikalima.
Even more demonstrators gathered at the access road to thwart construction. Can you talk about the other solidarity actions that are taking place?
People in the Pacific, our Polynesian relatives, and people around the world are standing for us everywhere.
The mana can heal the people. You can feel the healing that comes right out of the ground here. And how did that happen? It's all the people's prayers. Centuries and centuries of prayers have been put in this ground. It is not about fighting something. It is about loving something. So passionate. So much connection. Why are you standing here? Because we must heal as a people. We must heal, and we know that way deep down inside of us, we must protect the healing.
Mukalani, mukahonua, nawane, nawane.
Nawe kala kala kuba.
Nawane, nawane.
Kubale bale hana.
Nawane, nawane.
Kubulu bulu kuba, aike kuba, lalake kumoku ali, ko ele.
Without placing an unwanted burden
we would like to offer these ki'i as gifts to kahu, who, if they want to care for them, then it is theirs to care for. And someday we may all come back to Pu'uhuluhulu to remember this time. And so we would like to offer this ki'i of huluhulu to Kaho'okahi Kanua, this image of Kane, to Lanakila, this image of Kumoku Hali'i, to Kuali'i Kamara, who is the land manager for this area. And we would like to offer this Wahine Noho Kapu, Wahine Noho Mauna, this representation of all the feminine elemental energies upon the Mauna, to Auntie Pua Case and her daughters, with an emphasis that Kapolei will be the long-term steward of this ki'i.
Pai Kalima! Pai Kalima! Pai Kalima! Yo! Yo! Yeah! Yo! Yo! Abu illegal nuni alageu Deiva boga opua he au la hiva he au pano he au lo ma ke hailo papalanina kulo halu o papamoy nuhele kamagania la amau aduai amu anoa no
Mitakepi apetukele eche makakan eche una ioti yunkapi no techike na eche chante mashiche takukash makakan eche ina waka yunka eche apetukele ake eche no jipi na makasi domania ina hoyampi yunka na wana gupte. My friends, my relatives, today my heart is heavy because we follow the animal nation. We look to the stars and the sun. We have the star knowledge. And we have our sacred sites as a vortex to the Great Spirit, Wakantanka. And we follow and we pray for everything that is. Everything has a anahi, a spirit. Wakantaka give us a mind, a body, and spirit to stand upon the earth. The white buffalo calf woman said, you stand up and pray. Pray for everything that has a here on earth. Uchimaka. And we have a message to the world because our ceremonies are being affected. As we stand in our ceremonies as sacred places, everything that we pray to, pray with. For they cannot speak. So we pray to the four-legged, the two-legged, the winged ones, the ones that swim and crawl. We know that they are being affected. And as we come here, our journey upon Mother Earth, the Spirit has called upon you. The Spirit is calling. And we have a voice. Wakantaka. Made everything upon Mother Earth to live in a beautiful way of life. The white buffalo calf woman said, only the good shall see the pipe. The bad should not even see or touch it. The elders told us that our ceremonies are not to be playing with. Our ceremonies are very strict. But our prayers goes out to the loved ones. Apetukele eche kenonji pina. Eche makak nechi yotiunka pinka eche otakie inje wochante shicha ihapi. Na eche wana leche wochikukaga pinka tiate eche inje wotakukit hapi kina eche hena wochikikaga pichake eche apetukele eche chate utiza pinka eche tukata ke chate inse kimoni pikti. As we stand in prayer, we have many relatives, especially the elders. They're praying with us right now. As we lit our sacred fire tomorrow on June 21st, many people will pray with us because the sacred fire must start. For that, it's going to be in our hearts and our minds, that prayer with that sacred fire. And the years to come, we want our little children to have a future like us. In our teepee, is a vortex to the Great Spirit. That teepee is circled like this. When we do our prayers, we bring balance back to Uchimaka. We must keep that prayer going. This way of life is beautiful. It's so beautiful because we know that we can make that change, create an energy shift upon Mother Earth. Thank you very much. Well,